and we are here for our weekly short video, and this week's topic is going to be on audiobooks. So I've come up with a list of top 10 family-friendly audiobooks for you. If you're like me and my family, we often travel a bit over the holidays to see everybody in the family. So we like to have an audiobook. It keeps the kids kind of calm and my husband and I kind of sane. Kind of. So
I don't believe it.
Here is our list of audiobooks that you can listen to with the whole family. So first off, since it is the Christmas season, one classic, it's not really a Christmas story, but it's a cute one. Peter Pan. There is a great audiobook in which Tim Curry does all the voices. He reads the audiobooks and he is perfect. The fact that he is not a mainstream Captain Hook somewhere is honestly like a crime against humanity. Speaking of Tim Curry, he also has an audiobook version of A Christmas Carol, which is so good. And guys, I don't know if you realize how short A Christmas Carol actually is. It's one of those, if you have a road trip that's 2 hours there, 2 hours back, something along those lines, you'll be able to get through A Christmas Carol. And I highly, highly, highly suggest the Tim Curry audiobook version. Also, if your kids are older and they don't want to listen to Christmassy stories, maybe they want something a little more dystopian, I'm going to go back to an old book, The Giver by Lois Lowry. Very popular book. They made a movie about it that we don't talk about because it wasn't very good. But the audiobook is awesome. Don't watch the movie. Listen to the audiobook. Now, Becky, you know this. Bo and I are big Lord of the Rings fans. Yes. We almost named one of our children after a Lord of the Rings character, and that didn't go over
since
well
no
with
one
the
could
family.
pronounce what know what it was.
Yeah.
And Great Papa was like, "What is that?" We said, "No, that's
It was
not going to work."
vetoed. So Eowyn. Yes. And my dad was like, Eowyn.
and
don't name this girl after Owen? Who do you know named Owen?
And my dad was like, Eon? Who is it? We were like, no, this is not going to work.
Yes. So neither of my children are named Eowyn. But if you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings world and you want to introduce your younger children to that, I strongly suggest giving the dramatized version of The Hobbit a listen. It's a little shorter, a little easier to grasp than Lord of the Rings. And even though it's not the full book, obviously, it's dramatized, it's abridged, it is a great way to introduce them to the literature. If you want to introduce them to a more traditional Hobbit than those movies that came out, dramatized version is great. Also, another classic, and you're going to like this, I put it on the list for you.
Okay, good.
Harry Potter. Guys, the first Harry Potter book, the audiobook is so good. The narration adds so much to the story, all the voices, and if you have young children, especially children going into, I think he was going into 6th grade in the first book, absolutely pick it up. It's a great, great listen. Your kids will love it. You'll love it. And then if you're like my family, you'll watch the movies over Thanksgiving because that's what we do because they're on television. The next one is one that I absolutely love. There is an audible version, it's on Audible, of Alice in Wonderland. It is read by Scarlett Johansson, who's played Black Widow, and she does a phenomenal job. Alice in Wonderland is the first novel I ever read to my oldest child.
Yes. I love Alice in Wonderland.
It's such a cute story. If you have young girls especially, they will enjoy this version of the book. It's a great way to introduce them to it and also, really help them fall in love with literature. If Alice in Wonderland is a little too sweet for you, there's Neil Gaiman's Coraline. It is a little darker. If you've seen the movie, you know that, but it is very sort of down the rabbit hole fantasy that he wrote for younger readers. Next is, and I just found this one today, like I added it to the list. There is a complete audio collection of the Chronicles of Narnia with a full cast recording. featuring Kenneth Branagh, Patrick Stewart, and basically every British actor ever. They're in it, and it's fantastic. And that's actually what we're going to be listening to as we make our journeys this holiday season.
Wonderful.
Another
because, the Chronicles of Narnia, that was the first thing I read.
Yes. So
to our oldest granddaughter.
So she will be getting a recap of all of those things. And since we read them to her when she was a baby, she's probably going to say, what is this? One of my favorite book series growing up was The Boxcar Children. And I didn't realize until today that they have an audio version of it. So we're going to get to that at some point.
Good.
And last but not least, and this is our family's favorite. We've listened to it so many times because it's only about 2.5 hours long. And that is Neil Gaiman's Odd and the Frost Giants. And every time I talk about this book, people are like, what? What is this? I've never heard of this. In case you didn't know, Neil Gaiman loves some Norse mythology. Loves it. He has written his own translation of Norse mythology. He wrote American Gods, if you're familiar with that. Odd and the Frost Giants is his, kid version of Norse mythology. There is a boy named Odd, because that was actually a popular name back in the Viking times. And he's also odd, the way we would say it. And when his world faces eternal winter, he finds out that it's because the gods have been tricked by a frost giant into giving up Asgard. So he finds Loki, Thor, and Odin, who have been turned into animals, and helps them get back to Asgard so that they can save the world from an eternal winter. It is clever, it is fun, and Neil Gaiman does all the voices, and he's perfect. He does such a great job at voices. If I could read like that man, I would read all of my own audiobooks, but I can't. So, but that is the end of my list. So those are 10 audiobooks that you can listen to with your family. I suggest you check some of them out. Audible.com is something my husband and I use, but there are plenty of sites where you can get audiobooks from now. We're not getting sponsored by any of them, so I'm not going to pitch them to you. But if you are interested, definitely check that out. And have a happy Thanksgiving.